Hi there, I'm Kushan Mitra, contributing editor at ThePrint, and I'm at Kunal Khattar's house. Kunal is a partner, founder partner of AdvantEdge, a venture capital fund focused on green mobility and mobility solutions. They have invested in many companies, the most popular of which you might have heard of is Rapido, which is a rapidly growing shared mobility or taxi service provider. And I'm here with Kunal to discuss the proposed Delhi EV policy that has said, among other things, and this is just a draft policy, mind you, that all three-wheeler commercial vehicles will have to go electric by Independence Day this year. And from 2026, on Independence Day 2026, registration of all internal combustion engine two-wheelers will be banned. Um, Kunal, what do you think of this policy? What are your first initial thoughts about these rather drastic steps being taken by the new Delhi government?
So, Kushan, thank you so much for having me. I think if you live in Delhi, we all recognize the challenges associated with the pollution here, and about 27% of that is caused by vehicular pollution. So, if we look at a simple statistic, 10% of commercial vehicles consume 70% of energy and hence cause 70% of vehicular pollution. So if you look at Delhi government's policy, I think they've recognized the need to electrify commercial vehicles. Of course, the lowest hanging fruit are three-wheeler autos, one of the most popular ways of shared mobility in the country. So if you think about what they want to do, they are saying, look, let's electrify commercial vehicles because of the high use case. And in a way, when you want to bring down pollution levels, you're going to have to start somewhere. So therefore, it makes sense to do that. So if you're talking about in future, you want to buy and add electric three-wheelers, the good thing is that electric three-wheelers is also going to allow people to move away from the need of a medallion or a license. I mean, we've heard horror stories of how people use and exploit that loophole, and a majority of three wheelers are run by people who don't own those vehicles. So, I think, in a way, that this is a great initiative by the Delhi government, and this will allow us to not only electrify a commercial three wheeler industry, but more importantly, it will also allow and increase the availability and supply of these vehicles.
Now, even the previous government installed several charging points on the main road. You can see them, they've got branding called Charge Karo. And there are other solutions as well, such as battery swapping stations. Um, do you think both technologies will coexist? I mean, fixed batteries as well as battery swapping, and what sort of increase in these swapping stations and charging stations will we need, even if only this part comes true, that all three-wheeler or light commercial vehicles or these micro light commercial vehicles become electric?
So I think charging infrastructure will be continue to evolve in parallel. So let's understand one thing. When we talk about the fact that we're going to ban registration of new vehicles, it means that ultimately you've got an existing car park or
Mm.
existing vehicles which will continue to be driven with on CNG. So just because you stop new registration doesn't mean that suddenly you're going to have to increase the charging facility 10x. It's a slow evolution in that space. I think if you look at the last 12 to 18 months, we've seen a significant increase in the number of charging stations. Absolutely, to your point, we are seeing a combination of both swapping as well as now we think that rapid charging or charging vehicles in under 10 to 15 minutes is gaining more and more popularity. We have companies like Exponent who are able to achieve that, and they are now setting up their network of chargers across the city as well. So that is what I think will allow this transition from CNG to EV become more seamless. I think in the near term, you're going to see a combination of swapping and rapid charging. But if I were to look 2 to 3 years from now, my guess is a majority of three wheelers would be fixed batteries and be able to be charged in under 10 to 15 minutes.
So with more Exponent energy, what Exponent also just showed off their megawatt charging with the bus.
Yeah.
That also brings me to buses.
Mhm.
We are, those of us who live in Delhi, are seeing more and more of these light blue DTC buses that are electric from various manufacturers. Um, do you think the entire bus infrastructure, and part of the draft policy also has buses, school buses, for example, which again, there's an existing car park, but
Yep.
in this case, bus park, I guess. Those you expect the new buses to move to electric as airports, schools.
I think ultimately, well, I think if you ask me, we will move 100% to electric. Now, whether it's going to take 15 or 25 years, that's to be seen. So, I think prioritizing electrification of commercial vehicles over personal mobility is definitely the way to go. I think there's a very strong push under PM e-drives to electrify public transportation networks, given the fact that these heavy vehicles consume a lot of energy, a lot of fuel, and are also driven a lot. Um, and the good news is that these buses typically have a range which lasts them the whole day, and therefore they really don't need any charging, if at all a small top up charging. And these buses are typically parked in bus depots where you have the ability to slow charge them overnight. So the infrastructure exists. There is a lot of buses. In fact, from what I hear, a majority of these vendors who supply these buses don't have the capacity to manufacture and cater to the demand.
Mhm.
That has been the speed at which we are moving away. Of course, we have some global benchmarks in China where we've seen that this has happened in a relatively short period of time as well. So I think public transportation, school buses, etc., etc. Again, once the charging infrastructure is established, it becomes much easier and much faster to move. Again, I'd like to reiterate that this transition is not going to happen overnight. Typically, if a bus or any vehicle has a life of 10 to 15 years, that is how long it takes for us to move away from and achieve 100% electrification. So this is going to be a multi-year, multi-decade process.
Kunal, I want to come to the last part over here, which is private vehicles, and this is on the two-wheeler front. Now, while battery prices have been falling significantly, we can see that in the price of new electric cars. Um, Two-wheeler mobility is still used by the lower middle classes, as we'd call them in India. Um, Entry-level motorcycles are still 50, 60,000 rupees. Entry-level electric scooters such as Ola S1 is still almost 80,000. Um, is that necessarily a good idea? I mean, the two-wheeler car park is huge. Let's
It's
make, I mean,
almost
it's
300 million. Yeah.
yeah, massive in India. Still, India is the world's largest two-wheeler market. Um, in my interview with Tarun Mehta, Tarun said that India is driving tech in two-wheeler EVs, but still they're expensive, right? The Bajaj Chetak, which is the number one selling electric two-wheeler right now, is almost 1.5 lakhs. That's a pretty penny.
Hmm.
Is it right idea to move
So,
that?
question, I think ultimately, as you know, majority of vehicles in India are sold on bank loans. So you have what customers pay is a monthly payout on an EMI. So if you look at the cost of owning a personal mobility vehicle is a combination of what you pay to the bank for the loan and what you pay for fuel every month. Honestly, if you even if an electric two wheeler is probably 30-40,000 rupees more expensive than an ICE, so therefore your EMI may be 1,000 rupees more per month, right? But that's probably you will save much more than that on the fuel. So if you were to combine the what you're paying for the bank plus what you pay for fuel, especially if you're charging at home, you probably are at par or saving money every month. And that's the way I would look at it. So it's not the ex showroom price or the sticker price, it is what am I going to pay every month to use an electric two wheeler instead of an ICE two wheeler.
But then again, capital cost is the issue, right? I mean, you're putting the money up front instead of.
Well, if it's a bank, you're putting your 10 to 15% of what your down payment is, balance is financed by the bank. I think what we've been trying to talk to financial companies to see if they can have competitive rates of interest or longer loan tenure to really bring down that EMI. I just want to point out that today in China, if you go, EVs today are cheaper than ICE and ICE are cheaper than hybrid ex showroom. I'm not even talking about cost of ownership. And therefore, I think once we are able to see larger volumes of EVs compared to ICE, economies of scale will kick in. It will bring down the cost or the BOM cost or bill of material cost. I think it's not far away that we're going to start seeing electric vehicles become cheaper than ICE. And I think that's the point where there will be absolute no-brainer to buy an electric vehicle instead of an ICE vehicle.
Thank you so much for your time, Kunal. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.